remember the song my daddy used to sing. It was a soulful tune. He sang it when he woke up in the morning, first thing in the afternoon.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Daddy Song Podcast, where we talk about fatherhood from the perspective of the performing artist. Today's guest is none other than a great trumpeter I've known for a little over a decade now, actually. Yeah, I met this man when he would come to Chicago, when he came to Chicago, and performed at the Jazz Showcase. And I think that was probably about 2010 or something like that. Anyway, he's a phenomenal trumpeter and a father as well, and happy to have him. Welcome, Jeremy Pelt.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think I have known you for like going on. I don't even know if you remember those days.
No, I remember those days.
Okay.
I just can't remember the exact year, but that's
yeah. Now I can't, yeah. I'm guessing.
Yeah. We'll just put it there.
Yeah, but it's been about that time when I was living in Chicago. Yeah, so I always like to start by getting, your background and everything, where you from?
Well, I was born in Newport Beach, California.
Okay. West Coast.
And I spent a significant part of my early childhood going between there and the Bronx, New York.
Okay.
Being that pretty much all of my family, maternal side and also paternal side, was from New York.
Okay, so you got a lot of family out here.
Yeah.
So you familiar? You grew up kind of familiar with the East Coast landscape.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And music. When did music start for you?
Probably from the womb.
Okay.
In an interest, in a state of being interested in it, I think I can't even pinpoint the exact age. I think that I remember being in 4th grade, and that was the grade where you could play instruments.
Right. Yeah, it was 3rd for me.
Yeah. So it was around there. So then I think that probably coincided with the burgeoning interest.
So was that like you grew up around music? Was it in your family or?
Well, no, I come from an actor's family, so I grew up with that. But the music thing was something that was cultivated really in the school system.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how much it's like that anymore.
It's not. It's not, but it very much was at the time.
Yeah. Same for me. For me. Yeah, I started in 3rd grade. First instrument was bass.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, those days have kind of shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Things aren't really like that anymore. You said actor, so both your parents actors, or just one of them, or?
Well, my father was an actor, and my sister was an actress, and my mother was a screenwriter.
Okay.
Yeah.
You never got into acting?
And she was she was also an educator as well.
All right.
I think like most parents, my sister's 11 years older than me, so I think like most parents, they say, well, if this one, it worked for this one, let's try to get this one, and it never quite took with me, in that sense. I think I've done a couple little things, but nothing that would suggest that I would have a real solid future.
So if I do some digging on YouTube, I'm not going to find like a cereal commercial.
No, there was in high school in California, My So-Called Life, which is a show that became a cult phenomenon, even though it only ran for one season.
Yeah.
But it was filmed at my school. A lot of things were filmed at my school. Grease was filmed. Obviously, I wasn't born for Grease, but a lot of shows were filmed at my school, and that one was filmed there, and I was an extra in that.
Okay.
Then there was. I remember when I first moved to New York, and there was this kind of like straight-to-video movie that was filmed in the Bronx called "The Day the Ponies Came Back" or something like that. I can't even remember, but I was in there and I actually had lines in it.
Wow. Okay, so you downplaying your.
Well, I mean,
stuff a little bit. That's more than I've ever done. And more than most people have done, probably. So yeah, what was your your upbringing, your childhood like in terms of, I don't know, just the general atmosphere of your childhood, the impressions of your environment? Growing up in California, because
Right.
we know the New York kind of city.
Well, I mean, but this is important because it's a different dichotomy,
Yeah.
between the both coasts. I mean, they're definitely different whole identities.
Okay.
Los Angeles kind of represented more of a kind of a freewheeling type of
Okay.
thing, as it
Okay.
were. I mean, you could be out there and go to the park and do all types of things without the feeling of peril.
Yeah.
Whereas New York was less so. I mean, we're talking about the early '80s, and a lot of times, cats don't realize, what New York was in
Right.
that period.
Yeah.
And I very much remember what it was in that period, and especially in the outer boroughs. So in the Bronx, you weren't just going out any place.
Yeah.
And my grandparents were strict. They said, "No, you can't get off this block," and they had everybody, all
Right.
their old folks in senior home. Everybody was watching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a different feel, coast to coast, just in terms of growing up. I had friends on both coasts that I still stay friendly with. Some 40 years later.
Yeah.
But I that said, I still identified more with being here, more so than LA.
Okay. So when did you move permanently? Like,
The permanent move happened in the '90s. I was in because I graduated high school in '94, and I went to Berkeley. I went to Boston,
okay.
and then I moved here after I graduated, and so that was '98.
Wow. All right. So you've been, running these New York streets for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Fatherhood. When did fatherhood start for you?
Fatherhood started in 2009. That's when my son was born. He'll be 14 in 9 days, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So it started then. And then it continued in 2011.
Okay.
And then it continued in 2016.
Okay. So you officially have you're father of three.
Yes.
A father of three.
Yes.
And interesting. So in a nutshell, so far, because we'll get kind of, I guess, as deep as we can into it. But what has the fatherhood journey been like for you thus far?
It's been a great journey into learning yourself and learning and seeing yourself.
Yeah.
That's the trip about that is being able to rationalize a lot of things through your kids.
That's usually the second question
Yeah.
I asked after this. Like,
Yeah.
what has fatherhood taught you about yourself specifically?
So, well, I mean, it's just like, once you kind of start to raise children to think for themselves and to have to question things and whatnot, then you start to really see how the wheels turn in their head. And I'm lucky in that I don't have the kind of kids that some people might have that are cunning in the way of trying to deceive the parents or putting one parent towards another. I never really experienced that with. I got very lucky with all my kids because they don't really want for much.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
they do. I mean, they want things like regular kids. My daughter wants a puppy. Ain't gonna be one here. And her mother's husband doesn't like pets, so they're not gonna have one.
Yeah.
So she's but those are things that they're not running around pouting about. You know what I mean? So I think that they have a tremendous sense of security, and I think they are happy within that, and not really spoiled in a sense.
Yeah. Cool. So, now you have a son, you have 2 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Any distinct differences, like in, I don't know, comparing and contrasting raising a son as opposed to raising a daughter? Like, what are the unique challenges of both, or the difference?
Mm-hmm. Well,
I have a daughter, and
yeah.
I've you know, I find myself when my daughter was born, I don't know if I was excited to have a daughter. I think I wanted a daughter more than I wanted a son. Or it may have been the opposite, but once she was born, it kind of like settled, like, you know, I feel like I'm more suited, my temperament is more suited to have a daughter than a son.
I was excited
about that.
Well, you know, I was excited to have a boy first. I wanted a boy first.
Yeah. That's usually the case, I feel.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, it was really because I already had the name picked out.
Okay.
And so, you know, I wanted, and it was a boy. Daughters, yeah, I'm very happy to have my daughter. You know, I'm happy to just have healthy children.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I never wanted daughters. It wasn't that. It was just that I was just glad that, you know, I could use the name that I had.
Yeah. I feel like if I had a son before having a daughter, or had a son instead of having a daughter, then, you know, my perspective would still be the same. Like, I could see myself being a father to a son, but, you know, but
you know, you speak about temperament, but I think my temperament is the same for both ways. I think that's also how I grew up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was never any kind of whatever importance or premium put on either, you know, child.
Okay. Do you have siblings? Well, you said you have
my sister's 11 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, it's a big.
Yeah, it's a big difference. But yeah, I mean, when we talk about raising, you know, sons versus a daughter, you know, you just really want them to exhibit just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know what I mean? I think that the divide will happen very soon in my case, because now I've got a teenager and I've got a preteen.
Yeah.
You know, she'll be 12 in December, and she already thinks that she's 16 sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when that starts to kick in, then that's when that's a completely different conversation. Right now, she's still, you know, teetering.
Yeah.
But you know, there's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because it's not really something that's talked about as much, but it's something that I've noticed, because both of my youngest daughter lives in North Carolina, but my 2 eldest children, they live in New York, but they're upstate New York in Nanuet. The thing that's different is that I look at my son, and I'm like, he'll be 14 in July, in 9 days, like I said. But there's a difference between a suburbanite 14-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy in the city. Yeah. Because I've got friends that got kids that are 14-year-old that are, you know, much more, you know, they seem like, you know, what you have to kind of be in the city. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, when I look at that, I'm like, well, damn, my son is still playing with Legos and whatnot. You know, it's like, is he... Other than the fact that you see a growth spurt, you know, he's getting taller.
There's still like a little level of innocence.
Yeah, there's a
carefreeness.
Definitely, definite. You know, and so that's what I see the most in my son. Even when walking, I mean, all my children were born in the city. Yeah, you know what I mean. But they just went different ways. You know, so now they're in, you know, upstate and in North Carolina. So okay. But yeah, temperament-wise, for me, it's about the same. You know, and I'm always conscious also not when they're that young, like my daughter's age, my youngest daughter's age. When Milo was that age and Charlie, who's the middle daughter, or my first daughter, was first born, and you know they're 2 years apart, I tended to treat them the same. Yeah. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because one thing I just don't like is spoiled children. Yeah. I just can't stand it.
So you consider yourself a disciplinarian, or are you more of a pushover when it...
I'm not a pushover. Yeah. Definitely not a pushover. Because that's the way I was raised. I was definitely not in my family.
Yeah.
No.
So you're more of a disciplinarian, you think?
I am. Well, I'm much more of a stick to it person.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be like, okay, what is No. No is a no, and that'll be it. And
Right.
go straight to TV.
Yeah.
That was my grandmother. Can I do this? No, and it just cut on the news. There was no follow-ups.
Right. Yeah, right.
There was no room for the big, but please, no, there was none of that.
Yeah. And so is that kind of in line with your upbringing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that I don't know, what are maybe some of the differences or the similarities in how you were raised that you're trying to carry over into the ways that, the experiences that you're giving your children, whether it be how your parents directly raised you or just your environment. Because, for me, and I spoke about this with Will Dellisford, me growing up in Georgia, having more open space and being able to go outside, kind of like what you mentioned in Cali. There's just there's that part that I miss for not really being able to, provide for my daughter and living in the city, because, we got to keep much more of an eye on children. So that's one of the things that I try to give my daughter experiences with, when we go down south to visit family, being able to be free to go outside a little bit more and give her a little bit of a longer leash. Mm-hmm. That's one of the important things for me in terms of how I want to raise my child, in addition to the discipline part of it and being, consistent with discipline.
Well, I think my children don't have to suffer that the city kind of thing, because they have quite a lot of space where they are. To really, be running around and doing that type of thing. So I mean, they're lucky in that regard. My eldest two kids are mixed race children, and so that is something that is notable. Okay. In terms of how they're raised. Yeah. And so that's something that I'm always cognizant of, because you can't. You want to. The question is when to introduce certain things that are going to be very important. Right. Into their world. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's also something that's quite unique, because them being mixed race means that you don't necessarily have the full picture. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you can't necessarily just, infuse them with everything black when they still have to have deference to the white side or the other side. You know what I mean? Okay. No matter, where you might lie within that. Right. So that's definitely a delicate way of navigating and wanting to make sure that they're happy in their skin, but also understand the huge importance of both sides. Yeah, I can see that. Did you feel ready when you found out that you were going to be a father? Because I often ask that, and wonder that, and so far I haven't gotten an answer that, oh yeah, I felt like I was ready. But I wonder, some people might. Well, I never thought about it like that, though. Okay. I still don't think about it like that, because it was excitement. Yeah. But that was also something that was in tandem with just being married at that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. We married, and then we were practicing. Yeah. And then next thing you know, there's a child. And it's like, wow, and so you're just excited for the whole journey. Okay. But I never thought about, the state of readiness. Okay. And I guess, because in the back of my mind, to me, ready basically means having just a huge reserve of money. I don't want to put everything to that, but
that's
that's a big ass part of it. Is to be able to have disposable income, but just even a better word, have resources available. Yeah. And that is something that I didn't have, and I still don't have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you bring the child into this world. I mean, most people that bring children into this world are not ready.
Yeah.
You know, mentally, I could say I was. I mean, you know, I think it's, you know, you teach. I feel like I'm a good person and balanced, and knowing right from wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, also from me being an educator and a musician and going around and touring and constantly teaching people about things, that the joy that I have in doing that definitely trickles down into fatherhood.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
In that sense, you could say, I was ready because I'm always ready to talk to somebody about, you know, especially, you know, history and whatnot.
Right,
you know?
right. So is there anything, I don't know, about yourself that you felt you know, okay, any habits, I need to change this, or I want to, before my child is born, or being a father I feel like it exposes you to maybe your children definitely reflect some things back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So was there anything that in particular that you felt, you know, I may need to make an adjustment here in terms of my habit or personality or anything like that, you know? Or it'd be, okay, I need to stop cussing so much, you know, or something like that.
I never did that. I can't really think of any one thing, any one conscious type of thing where I was like, you know what, okay, I'm going to have to start doing this now. I mean, everything was, if anything, it was always related to work and really how to get more money and resources. You know, and make life just a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you know, starting to think about saving more and you know, because now you have children.
Yeah, for sure.
Which didn't really become full circle until the beginning of the pandemic, sadly enough. Because as musicians, well, I shouldn't even say as musicians, because there are some musicians that are completely on top of their business and responsible with money. You know, I just didn't happen to, quite honestly, to be one of them. So, you know, the pandemic kind of just, you know, pulled your whole pants down to your ankles, and you're like, oh snap. So that was more of a change, and then that kind of informed a lot of different walks of, you know, life in that, and preparing for not only my future but also their future. Which isn't to say that I wasn't cognizant of what needed to happen with them anyhow in the future in terms of saving. You know, I already started that, but now, you know, I started doing things like, okay, I'm going to, you know, get my children stocks. You know, I'm going to start investing. I'm going to get you to stock. You know. Yeah,
I think that happened for a lot of it. Definitely, that period in time definitely pushed me to do that as well. I think that's the case for a lot of people. To start getting a little more financially conscious and in a more disciplined type of way. As far as being, you know, an artist, touring and working musician, how has being a parent informed your artistry? You know, or has it at all? You know, has it changed the way you write? Has it changed the way you operate in your career?
It doesn't change the way I write.
Okay.
It doesn't do that. I think that, you know, important part of, you know, the overall nature of my artistry is that I'm also a band leader and have been for a long time. And so, again, you know, my children, one of the things that you learn is that you don't have the patience to deal, you know, twice with things. So, you know, you already got kids, which you have to deal with. Your kids. Right. You don't want to see the same pattern of behavior with, you know, band members that are late, and, you know, you got to tell them 6 and 7 times to do something. You know what I mean? So that's probably one of the truer things for me. Is just like, okay, I got to figure out how to do this, patiently, But then at the same time, I'm like, listen, I already got kids.
Yeah.
I don't need to be now having to come and bring that into a professional environment where you're supposed to be on top of your game.
Yeah, exactly. So it just cuts out your tolerance for nonsense.
Exactly. It really does, dramatically so.
Yeah, I think it gives people a different relationship with time, for sure, because as far as time is important in music, from a musical standpoint, but also just you realize how fast things are going and the need to be focused, disciplined in different areas. Yeah, so in terms of your relationship with your parents, your father specifically.
Oh, my father died when I was a year old, so.
Okay, yeah. Same. Like, my father passed when I was 3 months. So, that was a specific relationship. Or any other male figure, because fortunately I had a few. But, your parents, and maybe we covered it a little bit already in terms of the relationship with your parents. Do you see it reflected back into your relationship with your child in any type of way?
That's a good question.
Or
that's a deep question. I'm thinking about that because I'm thinking about the fact that I didn't grow up with a father. I was incredibly close to my grandfather.
Yeah. So.
And he was the person that had anecdote after anecdote to talk about. And so that's where I get a lot of it from. That wasn't a day-to-day thing, though.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about the summers. It was not a day-to-day thing. My mother had to be the mother and the father. And so there is a lot of that I take from my mother that and bring into the way that I raise kids.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the kids now, I don't see much of myself in certain stages, that would make me react like my mother did. which is a good thing,
Yeah.
Because I come from the land of ass whoopings. But you can't even say it now. It's 2023. Shit, that wasn't the case in 80s.
Right.
But at the same time, none of them warranted, which makes me kind of have to think like, but I mean, I was a little bad kid. But yeah, on another, not even on a disciplinarian tip, but just in terms of one's manner towards the kids. I think a lot of that I'm figuring out myself. In terms of how to be there. I mean, like I said, my youngest is not here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have to have a kind of different relationship with her.
Yeah.
Versus, the two that are, in the state that I see more often.
How often do you kind of get to see your youngest? She's like, what, 6? I guess.
Yeah, she'll be 7 in October. That's more like if I'm not busy at all, once a month.
Okay.
But if I'm busy, then go a little bit longer. Thank goodness for FaceTime and all that.
Right. Yeah. FaceTime. Definitely. That's probably one of the best things about FaceTime with parents. All right. So, your children, are any of them, interested in music or art or whatever? Any of them acting or doing music?
Sure.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Okay.
Alma's into dance, and she's taking piano lessons. Alma's my youngest.
Okay.
Charlie is playing the flute.
Okay.
She's loving that. And Milo's been playing the trumpet since 4th grade.
So do you have that kind of inclination where you would kind of hope for them to go into a musical path either more seriously, or is that just not in your,
I just want them to be happy.
Yeah.
I think at one point every parent has that kind of thing, like, oh man, he's going to chip off the old block. But these days, no.
Yeah.
I'm just like, just do you.
Do what makes you, as long as you're cool. And that's cool. All right, I think that's about it. I want to wrap it up by finding out what's going on with you. I know that you have released a book, a series of books, 3 volumes, Griot, where you interview kind of musicians, and kind of some legendary figures, and
I
becoming legendary figures.
Yeah, I go across the generations of black musicians. It's very much in the vein of Art Taylor's Notes and Tones.
Okay.
Which he did essentially the same thing, all black artists, talking about things as varied as the art itself and their perspective on it, to socio-political issues in that period. I mean, that book came out he did those interviews in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And, I decided to go ahead and keep the ball rolling in today's times. And I've done that by interviewing people from, the eldest of generations to the younger generations. So everybody has a perspective, and you see sometimes parallels, and you see things where things veer off. But you get the mindset. You become in the mindset of the fact that the black experience as a whole is not monolithic.
Yeah, and I think the same can be said about the black fatherhood experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely something I want to continue to shed light on. And,
sure.
I feel like fatherhood is definitely a it's a community sport, I guess you could, because I think we all need to bounce stuff off of each other, and it helps. And it helps me personally to,
I mean, it's good that you're shedding light on it, because I mean, fatherhood is already something that is a lot of times placed in the background. But black fatherhood is even more so.
Yeah, definitely.
For whatever reason, for various reasons. So it's good to have something that's positive to talk about. Indeed. Black fatherhood, because I think it is it's important to know for your listeners and for everybody to know that our presence doesn't matter.
Right.
Those of us that choose to be very present,
mm-hmm.
And you have to work at that.
Yep.
And so it's always been a very important thing for me,
mm-hmm.
More so than anything else, to be a force in all my children's lives.
Indeed.
And really just be there for whatever they want to talk about,
right.
or whatever they're experiencing. And I might not know what the hell to do right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
I always say to myself, when the kids come over, I'm like, please, like my daughter being, on the verge of being 12, also means that, the period is on its way. And I'm like, Lord, please,
I just had that conversation with
her be here.
With my co-parent.
Yeah, but still, just our being there is an important thing,
sure.
And that enriches our lives to no end.
Yep. And so you got a volume 4 coming out?
I certainly do.
Yeah,
I'll be working on that.
Okay.
I release every volume in February.
Okay.
So Black History Month, you got
nice.
it there.
Yeah, I like that.
This is the 3rd volume, and I start generally compiling the interviews that I want to put in there around the fall.
Cool.
And start working on that. So I mean, I've got a pool of. It's not something that I interview. I conduct interviews for the volumes. I already have a pool of interviews already stocked.
Okay.
and I just choose
from
that pool.
Nice.
Yeah, because I've been at this since 2018.
Beautiful. And musically, what's coming up for you? I know
Music.
You got about 11 albums under your name already. I feel like you got an album coming out every year.
Yeah, I do. I do have an album coming out. I'm working on it right now, and it's something that is still formulating in my head.
Yeah.
I've changed my band.
Okay.
So it's still the same, kind of the same instrumentation. I've got guitar instead of piano now.
Okay.
So I'm trying some different things textually and see where it lands.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you going on the road anytime soon?
We'll be on the road in October in Europe and November in the States.
Okay.
So we'll be quite busy.
All right. Well, I think that'll about do it.
All right.
Check out Griot Volume 3. Go see Jeremy Pelt.
1 and 2.
A city near you.
Yes.
And
they can get it off my website, jeremypelt.net.
Volumes 1, 2, and 3, and then 4.
It's not on Amazon or anything.
Okay.
You have to go to my website.
Jeremy, I like that. Yeah, I like that. JeremyPelt.net. All right, Jeremy.
All right.
A pleasure.
Yes, indeed. My pleasure's all mine.
All right. Daddy Song Podcast signing off.
It was the song of a man who did the best that he could. He gave his love the way a real man should. And whenever folks would try to bring him